Hello, everyone. This is Justin Cobb, and welcome to another episode of Insights. Today, I want to introduce you all to this wonderful guest who is tuning in to us all the way from Florida. His name is Daniel Anzueto. Daniel is this amazing LGBTQ-centered entrepreneur. He is using his role at Start Out to help build the next entrepreneurs within the LGBTQ sphere. He is an advocate and a mentor, and it is such a privilege to have him on the show today. Thank you for coming on, Daniel.
Thank you for having me, Justin. Really excited to be with you today.
Absolutely. I was so excited when you said yes to this, to say the least. But before we continue, I know I gave the intro, but I wanted to open the floor for you to share with audiences anything further that you think that they should know about you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Again, really excited to be with you in this space. As Justin said, my name is Daniel Anzueto. I also go by Danny. If you call me Dan, I don't know who that is. I will not respond. Originally from Miami, Florida, and currently in Florida visiting family. I live in Sacramento right now in California. Born and raised in Miami, families from Costa Rica, queer activist. I've had the opportunity to co-found the nonprofit and have funneled some of the work that I've done in higher education and advocacy work into my work currently in Startup. So I'm really excited to chat with you today and to share some insights with folks.
And in honor of queerness and in pronouns, what are
yes, I welcome all pronouns. Thank you.
You use all the pronouns. I love it. You heard them, folks. Say he, she, they.
They're take them all.
Answers to all. I love it. So Daniel, let's go ahead and hop in our time machine. You and I have discussed this before in our private messages, and you mentioned before that you were raised in Florida, but give us a sense of what it was like for you growing up as a child and coming into your own.
Yeah, I think, being back in Florida right now, I'm at my mom's house, and it's fun because I'm the baby in the family. So I have two older siblings, and we all grew up together, but I've always been the baby. And even now at 38, I'm still the baby. It was really nice waking up. Mom was like, I got breakfast ready for you. And that was kind of part of what my life was like. I grew up in a household that was really full of joy and full of love, through multiple divorces that my mom experienced, through hardships that we had as a family. Joy was always centered in the experience. And so, growing up in Miami is kind of a wild place to grow up, because what you see on TV and what you see on movies is both true and completely fake. And so it was a very cool place to grow up and thrive and develop. I think it's where I really understood a lot of my queerness. So I went to school at Florida International University. I did my undergrad and grad programs there. And I really kind of got to flourish. I joined and led the LGBT student organization when I was on campus. Very quickly became I used to say I was the poster face for gay people on campus, because if there was a LGBT something, I would get called in to come talk on it. And it was a really good opportunity. I enjoyed all of that. It kind of put me into a space of learning how I wanted to help and work with folks. And so, even looking back at my high school yearbook, my quote in the high school yearbook was, I just want to be someone that you can come to for help. And that has kind of been a mantra in my life of how can I be of service? How can I help other folks? And it was great. I think throughout that process, my coming out, I was gay very early on. I knew this, I understood it, but I didn't have language to it. And once I did have language to it, I also had a lot of guilt and shame around that. Growing up as a devout Catholic, who is now, I consider myself a non-practicing. Lots of things that folks have to grow up with, have to experience. But I'd say throughout that, I was grateful for my family, for always being there, for engaging with me, making sure that I was resourced, I was happy, that I was engaged. It was just a good time.
This episode is brought to you by Cham Cham. Each one an expedition in flavor. It brings zest, it brings zing, and is rooted in culture and connection and community. What are you waiting for? The audience is tuning in to get a special 10% discount code INSIGHT at checkout with their online purchase. That's awesome. So you're growing up, and despite all these turbulences that you were going through with your family, your mom was still this bedrock in a sense. Where do you see a lot of those influences from your mom coming out and setting the example for what you're trying to do today?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it. My mom, I say this, and a lot of people hear this, and they're like, "Oh, okay." My mom's one of my best friends. Someone that, as we grew up together, having this really powerful, grounding, central force in my life was really important. My brother and my sister are also incredible support pillars in my life. But when I look to her, I'm like, my mom at certain points in her life was a single woman raising 3 kids, trying to get as much as she could for all of us. And I don't remember missing anything. I don't remember not having access to things. I remember Halloween parties where I didn't realize it, but mom made the costume. We didn't buy the costume. I remember really big activities and things that we used to do where I was just always like, oh, this is interesting. As you reflect back in life, you're like, oh, I guess there were some things that were missing or some things that could have been shinier. But I never really thought about it because of the incredible power that my mom is. And even now, I look to her and I say, I'm like, you are doing incredible things. I won't mention her age because she'll hurt me. But she is fantastic. She goes out for day and she's incredibly creative. She's constantly making things and building things. And I think it inspires me all the time to just be like, I can do more. I have this like source, my mom, that I can really pull from. And it's exciting to be able to show her now, being here and visiting and talking to her about my work and the things that I am and where I am in life, to see that she's like, oh, good, you're good. I did a good job. And it's nice as a son to be able to be like, you did. And I'm happy.
And you mentioned before when we were talking that your identity was a point of tension within the family as well. What was it like growing with that?
Yeah, I think, as a lot of closeted queer folks may experience, is super difficult, I think. And not for any particular reason that my family was like negative or bad things. It was just, you realize that there's this thing that is a part of you that society, religion, people, everybody has been telling you that it's a bad thing and you should hide it. And I really clearly remember like early teens where I was like, oh, I'm gay. I'm like, that's what this thing is. And also seeing how other queer folks in the world had experienced that. And I was like, that just might be a thing that I don't share with people. And so, reflecting on it as a 13-year-old, to have to sit there and go, I'm just going to hide this part of me for the rest of my life because I don't want to cause pain or discomfort to other people, including my family. This is a really tough thing for a 13-year-old to kind of struggle with. And so coming out to my family, I did what I think some folks do. I was bisexual for a while. And that is not to negate bisexuality. It is a valid sexual orientation. I have many beautiful bisexual friends and I appreciate them. But I also realized, I said that at some point in high school and in college, I was like, I haven't dated a girl in years. I haven't looked at a girl and found her attractive in a relationship kind of way in a very long time. I was like, and most of my experiences were like, oh my God, you look great. I would love to wear that dress. And so coming out with my family, we had our moments. There's lots of questions and conversations. And I think as an adult now, I understand that any of the struggles that we had were transferred of their worry. Are you going to be okay in life? Will you be happy? What does partnership look like? Unfortunately, a lot of the experiences that older folks have, and older, I mean, anybody that grew up in the 90s, is also, the AIDS epidemic, all these things that were happening, like what's going to happen to you? And so as an adult, I can understand where some of that conflict and questions and frustration came through. But I didn't understand that fully as a kid. And I was just like, why don't you get me? Why don't you understand these things? And I'm grateful that I was able to take the time to really understand that, engage with them, have really powerful conversations with them. And now my family is as proud as they've ever been of me. My family comes with me to Pride events if there's things. My mom, my sister got little Pride stickers on their cars and things, and they're very proud of who I am as a person, who I am as a professional.
That's beautiful. Having that having that sense of support is it's foundational, and it can really make or break a lot of circumstances. And not everyone gets that support.
Very true.
And it actually does lead into a lot of the work that you're doing now, where you are mentoring and advocating for this. I want to say these next generations of LGBTQ entrepreneurs who are coming up and into their own. A lot of them are coming into these spaces without the support behind them from family members or even some of their peers. What was that journey like of discovering Start Out? How did you end up going from this person who was afraid to I'm actually going to mentor this next generation?
Yeah, I think, I found my way for Start Out many, many years before I was actually at Start Out. When I went away to college, so I used to live at home, and moving away to college was really my first experience of being on my own. I think a lot of queer folks, if you move away, whether it's to college, you take a gap year, you do something where you are not in your central space, you're like, ooh, I can understand and develop and know who I am. And so that led me onto campus. I joined the student organization. I led it for a few years. I started making connections with folks. It eventually led to an internship with the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. I worked on 2 of their major events, and I got to see one of the things I think that was really critical for me is they used to host a family picnic. I was under 21 when I started working there as a volunteer, so I could only go to certain events. And so the family picnic was one of them, as well as the youth prom. But going to a family picnic and seeing queer families with their kids, having fun, being full of joy, it was like this light bulb moment that people experience where you're like, oh, I could still get to do this. I could have a fulfilling life and a beautiful experience. And so, I was able to transfer the work that I was doing on campus to a full-time job on campus. I actually realized that I had mentors and folks that were helping me who did this professionally. And I ended up going into higher education. I worked on a college campus for a few years, made my way into a higher ed association called NASPA based in DC, moved to DC for what I consider like my first big boy job because I was in a different state. I was learning something completely new and I loved it. I thrived. I used to work with senior level college professionals across the country who served on volunteer boards and helped us really kind of create events, figure out what's happening in the community. And that was a really good opportunity. I eventually moved back to Florida. I co-founded a nonprofit that works with queer and trans people of color to do capacity building and professional development. And that is probably the first time that I professionalized some of the mentorship that had happened. I think I've always been someone that you can talk to and say like, hey, what's going on? Let's look at, I'm a career services nerd. So I love looking at resumes and helping you do interview prep and things like that. And working at the nonprofit, that made me understand. I was like, oh, these are skill sets. These aren't just things that I like to do. I eventually pushed that into like executive coaching, and I would lead some of our training sessions and different components like that. But I also realized I don't like being the boss. And I think the entrepreneurial spirit is something that I value. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to really test it out and build something beautiful. But I was like, I don't want to be the boss. I don't want to be a CEO. I don't want to be the main fundraiser. I'm like, that's not my passion. And so I found myself in Start Out. I was able to really engage all of the things that I've been doing, volunteer engagement, event planning, and found Start Out where I could work directly with volunteers, planning events, supporting the work that they're doing, serving as a mentor in the way that they're building their programming, engaging with partners to continue to provide stronger community for our folks. And I love it. It's really great.
What was that journey? Because you talked about how you got involved in this work and you had the opportunity to be the CO. And then as you were going on that journey, you realized, oh, wait a minute, this is not it.
Mhm. Yeah. I think my co-founder was our CEO. I served as our CEO and our senior director. And it was just kind of this constant thing. And I share this a lot with folks of sometimes if you're on a career path or a trajectory and you keep hitting a wall and you're like, oh, I just got to get better to get over the wall. But then the wall rises with you. It's not a, you got to get better. That wall is there for a reason. I read once a post that said something like, maybe you're hitting a wall because you need to rest and you need to lean on it. It's not necessarily something to overcome. And it took a lot of work because I was really passionate about what I was doing and I really loved it. And I was grateful for opportunities to help some incredible people. And I was always stressed. I was always anxious. I lived with anxiety, with depression, with ADHD. And I had these moments where I was just like either frozen in like a ADHD paralysis, or I was stuck in bed for weeks at a time. And I was like, I don't understand what it is. And it took a few years to finally get it. I was like, I'm just not in the right lane. I'm not, I can do fundraising. I've had some amazing conversations with folks. I've been able to raise funds for different organizations. But that's not my gift. It's not my skill. My thing is working with people one-on-one, working with groups, helping them develop ideas. One of my favorite things to do is to brainstorm and ideate with folks and really dig in deep on what this idea is and talk to people and then be like, okay, cool, this is yours. You can take it, go execute it. And so it was a hard process. And I really share that with folks because sometimes when you're hitting that wall, it's not because you're not enough. It's not because you have to work harder. Sometimes it's because it might not be the right path. And it's an opportunity for you to take a step back and really be like, oh, let me assess what's going on. Am I in the right path? And what other opportunities are available.
Hashtag you're enough, folks. Hashtag yes. We are worthy and valid regardless of what we do.
Great.
And Daniel, it's really fascinating because you talked about this journey and you mentioned that wall being a source of rest. These lessons that you've learned don't come without sacrifice in a lot of ways. What were some of the like challenges that you faced during the process of learning this wisdom?
Yeah, I think, part of it is understanding a little bit more about yourself. I have always tried to be a little bit more introspective and understanding, but I'm also very ignorant sometimes to like this little voice in the back of my head that's telling me, hey, you have to slow down. You have to calm down. Yes, you want to help other people. And that common phrase of you can't pour from an empty cup is very real. I have experienced burnout. I will provide a trigger warning or a content warning for folks as well. I've had a ton of suicidal ideation. I've had experiences where I was just like, I'm not enough and I'm taking up space and I should remove myself from that space. And I'm so grateful for therapy, for medication when I needed it, for family and friend support when it was there. Because I think it's important to understand that, as you're talking about sacrifices, sometimes we sacrifice ourselves. We put ourselves in negative spaces where we do not value who we are, what we bring. We value what we do for others. And it took a lot of years to really understand that I can't help other folks if I'm not helping myself. And so I am many, many years into therapy, various different therapists. Shout out to the folks who have helped me if they watch this. And I talk to everybody about it. I'm like, everybody deserves therapy. I don't think everybody needs it, but you deserve it. You deserve this space to go and speak with someone. And therapy could be in quotes. It could be one-on-one counseling. It could be group counseling. It could be a yoga class. It could be surfing, whatever it is that helps you get out what it is that's in your body and in your mind to center more on yourself is critically important. I think, as you look at that, I've had to sacrifice friendships, I've sacrificed jobs, I've left opportunities where I was like, this doesn't suit me. It's not the right space for me. And it's a hard thing to do. It's very hard. It's very difficult. I definitely got stuck for many years in a lot of different places. And as I have gotten older and as I have understood my own value, it has helped me be really strict at boundaries. I am excellent at my boundaries now, to the point that other people are like I'm going to learn how to say no from you. And I'm like, I will say no all day.
Boundaries get some folks, and it is okay to put them on. That is how you make sure that you don't pour from an empty cup.
Mhm.
And it's so pinnacle now, especially as we're entering these times. And you got a whole lot of people who are being hurt by what is going on in the world right now. And the sense of I want to be there for community, and also at the same time, if I give too much of myself, then I put myself in a compromising position of where now I can't even show up in the way that I need or want. And Daniel, like from the sounds of it, that was not an easy journey. The fact that you gained this wisdom from this, like, props to you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was a hard journey, and it is a daily practice. I will say it's not like, okay, cool, I'm good now and everything is good. It is a daily, sometimes hour, sometimes minute by minute practice where I'm like, nope, you deserve more, or you have better skill sets, or you could be in a better space. And sometimes just no. No is a full sentence.
Hmm. What has helped you in maintaining this practice?
I am much more vocal about it. I will say, I think I talk to a lot more folks about one, the difficult things that I have experienced and where that has taken me, and also where I'm at now. And I am a huge advocate, like I said, for therapy. I'm a huge advocate in trying to talk through some things. If you need a way to refocus, if you need a way to kind of step back, for me, a huge proponent is the ocean, actually. Sometimes when the world feels too big, and so, I also watch the news. I get a ton of my updates on TikTok. Shout out to the news correspondents that are doing that kind of work. But sometimes when everything feels too heavy and it's too loud, I'm like, I have to go look at something that is bigger than me, so that I realize that everything that's happening in the world, yes, it's scary sometimes, it's big, but there are also things that are bigger than that and that we can make it. And I will often, and that's one of the things that I'm excited about being back in Florida, I'm just going to go sit and look at the ocean and kind of revel in the fact that there is something that is this massive space where I can go and focus myself. So I think, as you do that, whatever the ocean is to you, whatever that thing is, it could be, I have my dog is sitting under the desk right now. It could be your dog, it could be your family, it could be going for a walk, it could be taking a nap, whatever it is, help yourself to that space and
Mhm.
stay true to it.
You're talking about the ocean, and I see the background there behind you. And yes, it's a photo and everything, but that photo is really,
It's a
it's
good, yeah. Yeah,
a good
sometimes if you
rendition.
can't get to the ocean, you can get to a photo, and you just gotta, put some wave sounds and center yourself in whatever way you need.
I love that. What are some of the lessons that you have learned from the challenges that you've endured going through this?
Yeah, I'd say number one is make sure you have your squad. Make sure you have your folks that are around you. Figure out what that looks like so that there are people that you can reach out to, and tell them what you need. I think, there's a lot of experiences where people are like, I'm here if you need me, or if you need anything, I'm a call away. And it is a sign of them wanting to be there for you. But if they don't know how that looks, they really don't know what to do. And so I talk to my friends often, and I'll say, I'm like, hey, I need a space to vent. Or I'm like, hey, I actually have a group of people right now that I'm working on, because I said, I want to get better at tracking my goals and accomplishing some goals. And I was talking to some friends, and I was like, maybe I need like a coach. I'm like, maybe this was before I had found my current therapist. I was like, maybe I need a therapist. And my friend was like, you have really good friends. Why don't you just ask them for help? And I was like, oh. And so I have a group of folks. There's, I think, 6 of us. We meet once a quarter. They all set their goals. I set my goals, and we just check in. We have a WhatsApp chat. We talk to each other. We check in. We make sure that everybody's doing okay. So having that squad is super important. I think being aligned to, as corny as it sounds, whatever your true purpose is super important. For me, my true purpose is helping people. So what's good is that I can do that in many different places. It doesn't mean that I want to help people in only this kind of space. And I'd say just have fun. joy to me is incredibly powerful, and it is a skill. So when I say joy, it's not just a smile. It's not just like oh, everything is great. Joy can come even in the darkest of places. So figuring out what that is for you and keeping that as tight to you as you can while also sharing it with folks. Even in my volunteer training, when I go over kind of my own process for community development, some of the things that I tell folks is, rest, don't grind, which is hard because I work with entrepreneurs.
Yes,
Work,
always something to grind out, always.
I work with folks who are constantly grinding, who are often not taking care of themselves, who sometimes work as solopreneurs. It's really just them. And I'm always asking, like, how are you taking care of yourself? What are you doing? How can you get outside? How can you get in your head without being into the specific spaces? And so for me, joy is that thing. I actually recently talked to some folks about what I am now calling the triangle of joy.
Ooh.
That is when I walk my dog, I look down at my dog and that brings me joy. And then I see other people looking down at my dog and they're like, oh, she's so cute. And then we look at each other and we both smile. No words, nothing happens. Sometimes it's your dog's so cute and thank you. But it's just this very quick second where I'm in this triangle of joy. And whenever I hit it, I'm like, oh, that's good. And so figuring out what that is for you, I think is most critical.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. The triangle of joy.
Triangle of joy, whatever that looks like. Sometimes that joy is a taco. There could be anything else. For me right now, the joy is walking my dog.
I'd love that. And you talk about your dogs a lot as well. They're And here's the thing that speaking as a person, I don't own a dog, but I have in the past. What has owning this lovable animal that brings you joy taught you about yourself?
Yeah, so Stella, who is my dog, it's the first time I've had a dog as an adult for their whole life. So she's 14 now. I got her when she was like 3 months old.
No, baby.
Yeah. I grew up with dogs and I was a kid with dogs and things, but this is a really different experience. I think the number one thing that it has taught me is that somebody depends on me. And, I talk to my friends who have kids and I'm like, I am so proud of you for having kids, because the thing that depends on me really just needs a walk twice a day and some food and love. I'm like, she doesn't talk back normally. But it has shown me, even in the darkest depression that I experienced, I still had to get up and I had to walk her. I still had to get up and I had to feed her. And I had cats at that point too. And in the darkest moments, I was like, but there's this thing that loves me unconditionally. This thing that looks to me for really everything that it needs. And so I just remember like sitting in bed and she would just like stare at me at the door. And I'm like, I know you have to go out. I was like, I can't get up. And I would like physically, I'm like, I can't get up. And she'd get closer and I couldn't get up. She'd get closer. Eventually she'd like be sitting on my face, just like looking at me. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. For you, I can do this. And she's been an incredible partner for me. I think having her, she is definitely an emotional support animal for me, just as I am an emotional support human for her.
She is one of these ones who has been keeping you going in these times. I don't even want to just say hard times, because let's be honest, these times have been a little rough. And they've been kind of the norm as of late. So what is hard anymore? But
yeah, it's true.
Daniel, what else was keeping you motivated on those days where you were just like, oh, I really don't know if I can do it?
I think aside from joy, queer joy is this beautiful, powerful thing that we get to experience. I always think about like the flowers that grow through the pavement, or like will just kind of show up, and I'm like, you just need to experience these spaces with folks. I'm incredibly grateful for what my coming out experience was like, the people that were there when that was happening, because I got to see really beautiful parts of queer life. Like I said, I went to the family picnic. I think when I went to my first Winter Party Festival, which takes place here in Miami, I think just took place this past weekend. It's like 10,000 gay men and a handful of lesbians that come from around the world into this space. And they have this beautiful event. That's one of the final events. It's a beach party. It takes place on Miami Beach, on the sands. And my 21-year-old self looking and seeing an ocean of people dancing. I mean, like, oh, look at this. This is beautiful. We can bring this joy. And so I look to a lot of queer folks for that right now. I look to a lot of music, listening to a lot of Bad Bunny. I listen to Wicked nonstop. I think you have to find the tools of what that looks like. I also, sometimes the tool for me is I spend hours in a spreadsheet. And I'm like, ooh, I love data. I'm like, let me pull some data. How can I do my job better? Let me do some research on different community engagement techniques and things like that. And so I am constantly trying to add more things into my toolbox, because sometimes you'll reach for something and it's not the right thing. And so only having one thing in your toolbox might not help you in that moment. So I'm constantly trying to add things. Some of those things are people. Some of those things are items. I have ADHD, so I always have a fidget thing. You'll see my hands keep popping up. I always have a fidget something. I always have something that keeps me engaged in the moment. Because of anxiety, I'm often worried about what is coming and what I did, but how do I stay centered in the moment is really critical.
I love that. And props to all the fidget toys. They keep a lot of people grounded. They're, uh, and you mentioned during your answer, you mentioned Bad Bunny and Wicked. And what you're talking about is a point of tension for a lot of folks within your community in specific, because it is trying to find that balance between Latinidad and LGBTQ-ness. And while you and I, speaking as a non-Latino, but has a lot of Latino friends or Latin friends, a lot of them are just they're walking that tightrope and that balance and trying to own that narrative of like, I am both.
Right.
What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, you know, intersectionality is a hard thing for some folks. For some folks to understand it from the outside, but also what that means to you on the inside. So, like I said, I was born and raised in Miami. My family is from Costa Rica and Guatemala, and I discovered my queerness before I discovered my Latinidad, my Latin identity. Because I grew up in Miami, everybody spoke Spanish. It was, you know, you go to Calle Ocho in Little Havana and all the signs are in Spanish. Nobody speaks to you in English. One of the things I'm most excited about being back in Florida is all the Cuban food I'm going to go eat. But I did not really understand that identity of mine because I didn't have to develop it, versus friends who I knew from Miami who moved all over the country and they're like, oh, there are no other Latinos here. My kind of tiny experience in that was I moved in high school to West Palm Beach, and I went to a high school in West Palm and I was like, what's West Palm Beach? It's an hour and a half north of Miami. It's not going to be that different, but it was a very different world in the area that I was in. I was one of a handful of Spanish speakers that I remember just engaging with across my entire high school. Most of the Spanish that I spoke with were like the kitchen staff and the janitorial staff. And coming into college, my queerness was really kind of just jumping out. I was like, it was the first time I really had the opportunity to experience that. And I remember at some point, like junior, maybe senior year, after a few years of really leading and doing all this work, I was like, I'm kind of tired of being the face of gay. I was like, this is a lot of work constantly showing up for this. And I was like, I don't really have another identity. Everything I did, the organizations I was a part of, the conversations I had, the work that I was doing was around my queerness. And I loved it and I celebrated it. But then I was like, what else could I do? How else could I engage? And so to me, that has been a constant struggle over my life. I am a light-skinned Latino, and I recognize that that is a huge privilege. In many, many spaces that I go in, unless I say something in Spanish, most folks will assume I'm white. Which is a huge privilege that I have used to my advantage in a lot of spaces where I can bring in other Latina folks. But also it's just funny sometimes when you hear people talking Spanish and sometimes they're talking trash and then I can respond to them in Spanish. It's one of my favorite little things that happens. Yeah, so chisme is important. That spelling that T, so chisme in Spanish, I think is super important, and it's beautiful finding those connections. So I have pushed a lot more into that. I feel like I speak Spanish fairly well in a conversational kind of space. Please don't ask me to speak professionally in Spanish because it will be awkward, and it'll be a little bit of Spanglish. And part of that is, in this coming year, I want to go take Spanish classes. And I want to go and like actually learn how to write in Spanish and how to speak like professionally in Spanish. I call my mom every morning. We chat and check in on how things are happening, and I talk to her in Spanish. And I try and push myself to talk to her only in Spanish. If I don't know a word, I go, wait, how do I say this? And then she'll tell me, and I'm like, okay, we'll keep the conversation going. And it has become very important to me. I'm like, I want to dig into my roots. I want to take my partner back to Costa Rica. I was like, my mom is one of 13. So I'm one of like 50 first cousins. I was like, you got a lot more family to meet. uh, and so I'm excited about that. And I think it's, you may not find certain parts of your identity until different parts of your life. And when you are able to explore those, take the time, explore it if you'd like, and kind of figure out what you need from it. And then add that to your toolbox, add that to your personality, add that into your space.
A lot of what you're talking about is being rooted in who you are. And that's not an easy feat to accomplish, especially when we live in a world that wants to shame everything that is not the norm or is accepted as the standard. What advice would you offer to these next generation of Latinos, Latines, Latinas, Latinx who are all, especially in these times, and not all of them are impacted by the rhetoric in the same way,
Right.
but that leaks, and it does have an impact.
It does. It does. Yeah, I think, it's hard because like even walking around my neighborhood, I am both grateful for it, but sad about it. I see a lot of signs, even on doors posted of how to respond if ICE shows up at your house. And, in the moment I see it and I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful that community is coming together and it's in English and in Spanish and it's telling you what to do and it's telling you how to support your neighbors as well. And so I'm like, I love seeing community show up for each other like that. But also, it's heartbreaking to hear these stories. It's heartbreaking to hear about immigration folks showing up at a school. I used to work on a college campus, and when you work in spaces like that, especially like I think of friends that are in high school, middle school, elementary school, you put yourself in front of any danger for the people that you are supporting, for the kids that you're teaching, for the students that you get to work with. And I'm hearing so many stories of people stepping up and supporting communities. I just saw a very funny post of ICE saying that they're coming to Boston, and then all the Boston folks being like, "Oh, really? Please try us. We will be there to support our Latinx family. We will be there to engage with the Black community. We will be there." And so the piece that I'd say of advice is kind of like find what you need, share that with folks, figure out ways that you can still find that little bit of joy in these really hard times. Fight back if that's your thing. Uh, I've always said I'm not a political gay. And I say that in the context of I don't have the skill set of being an organizer. I have some incredible people in my life that I have learned from who in 20 minutes can organize 1,000 people. And I'm like, that is amazing. I'm like, I want more of those people in our world. If that is a skill set you have it. My skill set is in supporting folks. I want to show up to that group of 1,000 people and ask them individually how they need help. What can I do? How can I support the work that they're doing? And I'd say just find what that is and make sure you're taking care of yourself. This is a super scary time right now to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I make a point of talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion because DEI has become this thing that we can just throw away. But if you ask somebody like, oh, you're against diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's a little bit harder for them to be like, no, I'm just against DEI. So for anyone that's coming up, for my queer family, for my Latinx family, for my Black family, for my immigrant family, for all of the families that are experiencing these things right now, it's just, be in community, find that space, find that support. If you can't find it physically, find it virtually. Find places that will show you that love is still there and that it's still powerful.
A lot of that is going to be necessary in these days to come. And I tell people all the time that we really have underestimated the power of small things.
Agreed.
When you talked about the kindness and making sure you're being of service to others and showing up, asking them what they need, that's one way of doing that. And there's multiple different ways. Now it's a matter of finding out which one works best with what you can offer.
Yeah. I think a big thing for me, I get to work with some incredible volunteers, but I also love to volunteer. I will go give back. I will show up. I will work registration. I will hand out water. I will do things to show up for my community in that way. And I think it's important. I'm very excited to get back home and go sign up and volunteer for the library in Sacramento. My first job on campus was at the circulation desk, checking in books. I was a very different person. I had hair down to my shoulders and a little chin guard here, and I was like a total hippie. But I also know that libraries are radical places, beautiful places, full of activists and powerful people, full of obviously incredible stories like the books that you have in your bookcase, where we can go and learn and grow from. And so I think that joy, that kindness that you can find sometimes, to me, that is volunteerism, and it is giving back to my community.
Absolutely. And it's funny that we were talking about Latinidad and Spanish and everything. Actually, I think I might have lent some of them to one of my friends, but I usually have a bunch of books of like Spanish, Latinidad going on over in here since Spanish is my second language. It's a lot of fun. So as we're going forward into this, I'm curious, what other projects are you excited about, Daniel, that you have coming up that you want to share with audiences?
Yeah, I think, in the world of Start Out, I oversee some of our signature events. And this year, I won't share a lot about it because there's a press release coming and we're going to announce it. But we're taking one of our big conferences in a different way. And I think we're trying to figure out, how do we show up for our folks authentically? How do we create brave spaces, accountable spaces for them so that they're able to have hard conversations with folks? And figuring out how to create a culture that is supportive, that is elevating, that allows people to feel like they can really be their authentic selves. Wearing a suit is sometimes claustrophobic for me, unless it's pink, which I happen to have a pink suit. And so how do I get to do that in the events and in the spaces that I do at Start Out? How do we ensure that the representation of the folks that are coming in look like the community that we get to support? So June, San Francisco, more to come, but we'll have a really big, great conference there. I also have our demo day pitch competitions, events that we used to host virtually. We're going to be hosting in person in various cities around the country in November, and I'm super excited about that. We will be announcing a trans power panel at the end of this month with some incredible trans entrepreneurs who are going to be highlighting the beautiful work that they're doing. And so part of what I try and do is keep an eye on what's happening in the community, how we can leverage the resources that we have as a national organization to support that work. And then I'd say personally, so I'm 38. My birthday is in November. I'm a Scorpio. I had the realization the other day. I was like, I'll be 39. I'm like, oh, I turn 40 next year. I was like, oh. And so I am gifting to myself that when I turn 40, so the next year and change, I'm going to work on myself. I want to be healthier. I want to be happier. I want to find more joy. I want to access a lot of different things because I am incredibly excited for my 40s. My 20s was wild. Lots of fun stuff happened. In my 30s, I think I'm understanding a little bit more of who I am as a person. And that thing of like, I can't wait till I grow up and figure out what that is. I'm still experiencing that. So I think my 40s is right when I'm ready to grow up. And so for me, that looks like being in a very healthy space. That is not abs. I will never want abs and will never be able to maintain abs, but I want to be physically strong and I want to be happy in my body so that I can continue to experience different things. I want to travel more. I want to do more fun things as I can. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. And going off of what you just said, I want to echo something real quick. All bodies are valid. You do not.
Bodies are valid and beautiful.
Yes,
I agree.
there. Just wanted to echo that. But also on top of this, I wanted to just spotlight the fact that a lot of what you're talking about is just taking care, again, the self-care, which is a theme that is coming up a lot, not just in this episode, but in previous episodes, is making sure that you tune in to yourself, you care for yourself. There's a difference between self-care and selfishness, folks. Selfishness completely throws everything out the window for you. Self-care says, okay, what can I do to make sure I am here as my best advocate, so then I can go forward and be an advocate for others.
Yeah, I have a screensaver that I had on my phone for a really long time, and I like wrote out this like mini poem to myself. And it was this idea, you know, we talk often about not pouring from an empty cup, but that is an assumption that you have a cup that's kind of full and you just pour a little bit. I want my cup to be so full that the abundance spills out onto others. Like I want to dig into myself so much that you, as people around me, benefit from it. And I think that is what my 40s are going to be. It's going to be a part where I am investing so deeply in myself that I am elevating everybody else with me. So I'm really excited for that time.
And another thing I wanted to spotlight too is that you mentioned how in your 20s it was wild, in your 30s you're kind of figuring out who you are and everything. In your 40s you feel like, yes, this is my time. Your time, our time. It like there's seasons, there's obstacles, there's challenges, and I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm thinking of Miley Cyrus. I'm sure she wasn't the one who said it, but I'm sure she got it from somewhere else. But she's the one I'm thinking of when it's like there's always another mountain. Always gonna be something.
You say seasons, and I'm singing Rent in my head. But I agree. Miley did it for us too. Miley, I appreciate Miley. Flowers was my divorce song, and I listened to that as my anthem. So I love her.
Yes, and on top of that, talking about rent, because these costs are going up, folks.
These costs are going up. Rent is moving from Miami. I lived in Kansas City for a year, and now being in California, I was like, oh, you don't play. Rent is expensive in California.
But you know what? Maybe it's a good time to bring in what Rent was trying to teach us all the way back in the 80s was, hey, community, love, support, appreciating small things, embracing the journey, and understanding,
and dancing on tables and diners just because.
Exactly. Exactly. Go for it, folks. Daniel, we're getting ready to come up on time. So for those who want to collaborate with Start Out or get involved with Start Out, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, I would love to work with folks. Quick spiel on Start Out if you're interested in learning more. We do a lot of different things. I get to engage with folks on events. We do have volunteer opportunities. For our founder members, we offer mentorship, expert office hours, access to capital. Our signature program is our Start Out Growth Lab, where we take organizations through a cohort accelerator experience. So specifically focusing on queer entrepreneurship, allies are a huge part of our community as well. So I very much recommend go to startout.org or email us at info@startout.org, and we will kind of get those folks to where you need to go. If you want to reach out to me personally, please feel free to find me on LinkedIn or daniel.anzueto@startout.org.
I love it. And you mentioned the allies thing, and let's spotlight this for a moment. Rent was talking about how we all can be advocates and allies for one another. All those characters all had to show up for one another in one capacity to another, and they were all different. They all did not have the same journeys, but they still appeared when they were called and they were ready. And
Yeah.
this is our time to do that.
And the critical thing with allies is allyship is a verb. It is an action. You don't just get to call yourself an ally. Show up every day.
Show up, folks, and take care of yourself. Show up, show out, be loud, be proud. And when the going gets tough, we squabble up. Let's go. There, Daniel, thank you for coming on to the show today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Justin, and for the work that you're doing, sharing the stories of folks on your channel. Much appreciation for you.